The art of speaking like a leader is not about using big words or sounding superior. It is about mastering the rhythm, tone, and confidence that command respect and inspire trust. Leadership begins not with authority, but with the ability to communicate vision, direction, and belief in a way that moves people. To talk like a leader, you must first think like one. Every word you speak should serve a purpose: to guide, to uplift, to unite, and to influence. When you open your mouth to speak, people should feel that what you're saying matters, not because you're loud or forceful, but because your words carry clarity and conviction. Chapter 1. Every leader's journey begins with a single realization: that the voice is more than sound. It is a force that shapes worlds, moves people, and defines identity. The way you speak reflects the way you think, and the way you think reveals who you are. To talk like a leader, you must first learn to feel like one. Your voice carries the energy of your beliefs, your confidence, and your sense of purpose. It is not about volume or vocabulary, but about presence, that invisible power that makes others lean in when you speak. The voice of leadership is calm but commanding, gentle but firm, humble yet unwavering. It doesn't demand attention, it earns it. It is the kind of voice that brings stillness to noise and direction to confusion. When you speak like a leader, you are not just giving instructions, you are transferring belief, courage, and vision. You are telling people not only what to do, but why it matters. Leadership begins not in authority, but in awareness of the impact your words can create. Every tone you use, every pause you take, every emotion you release through speech has the power to build trust or break it. A true leader understands that speech is a tool for influence, and influence is built on integrity. Before your voice can lead others, it must lead you. You must train it to reflect clarity instead of chaos, purpose instead of pride. Leaders speak with the intention to serve, not to impress. Their words are chosen with care, free of arrogance but filled with assurance. They know that communication is not a performance but a responsibility. When you open your mouth, you reveal your inner structure, your discipline, your mindset, your emotional control. A disorganized mind produces disorganized words, and people can feel it. A clear mind, however, produces a clear message, one that cuts through confusion and inspires trust. The voice of leadership is not about sounding superior, it is about sounding certain. People follow voices that sound certain, not because they are flawless, but because they are grounded. Confidence is the quiet conviction that your message has meaning. It is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to rise above it. When you speak with confidence, your voice naturally slows down, your breathing becomes steady, and your tone grows rich with calm authority. You are no longer racing to be heard, you are guiding others to listen. The foundation of leadership communication lies in authenticity. Pretending to be someone you're not breaks the bond between you and your listeners. People can sense when your words are rehearsed or hollow. They follow leaders whose voices sound real, whose tone matches their truth. Authentic speech is born from self-awareness, knowing your values, your mission, and your message. When your words come from your core, not your ego, they resonate more deeply. You no longer speak to prove something, you speak to share something. Every great leader has mastered this harmony between heart and voice. Their communication is not mechanical, it breathes life, emotion, and humanity. They understand that to touch minds, you must first touch hearts. When people feel emotionally connected to you, they don't just hear you, they remember you. A leader's voice also carries emotional intelligence, the ability to sense what others feel and adjust accordingly. It's knowing when to speak firmly and when to speak softly, when to inspire and when to comfort. The tone of leadership is flexible, not fixed. It can rise to energize a crowd or lower to calm anxiety. Emotional adaptability allows your message to meet people where they are. If you speak too harshly, you create distance. If you speak too timidly, you lose authority. The balance lies in controlled strength. a voice that carries compassion without losing command. Leaders use their voices not to dominate but to direct, not to control but to connect. But before you can lead others, you must listen to your own voice, your internal dialogue. What do you tell yourself before you speak? Doubt, fear, and insecurity can quietly sabotage your message. If you think small, your words will sound small. If you think boldly, your speech will carry that courage. Leaders train their inner voice daily, feeding it with positivity, focus, and vision. They replace self-criticism with purpose-driven affirmation. This inner mastery is what shapes outer authority. The voice others hear begins with the voice you hear within. When that inner voice becomes strong, steady, and clear, your outer communication naturally reflects it. Leadership speaking is not about perfection. It is about progression. Every conversation is a chance to refine your tone, strengthen your confidence, and learn how your message lands on others. Great communicators are lifelong students of their own voice. They listen to recordings of themselves, they seek feedback, they adjust their delivery, and they evolve over time. They build a voice that carries presence, that silent charisma that makes people stop and listen even before words are spoken. Presence is energy, not noise. It's a mixture of posture, breathing, and purpose. When your body aligns with your words, your presence becomes magnetic. To talk like a leader is to recognize that your voice can be a mirror or a magnet. A mirror that reflects truth, or a magnet that draws people toward it. Every time you speak, you shape how people see you and how they see themselves. That is the real responsibility of leadership speech. You are not just expressing thoughts, you are shaping perspectives. Your words can heal, motivate, or transform. When used with care, your voice becomes a living legacy, one that echoes long after you've stopped speaking. So begin now. Speak with purpose, think with clarity, act with integrity, and let your voice become the instrument of your leadership. For it is through the voice that leaders are remembered, movements are born, and change truly begins. To the difference between an average communicator and a true leader begins long before a single word is spoken. It begins in the space between thought and expression. Thinking before you speak is not hesitation, it is precision. It is the deliberate act of aligning your mind with your purpose so that your words carry clarity instead of confusion. Every sentence you form has the potential to build trust or erode it, to uplift or to divide, and that power must be handled with care. Great leaders understand that words are not just tools, they are extensions of thought, reflections of discipline, and mirrors of character. When you rush into speech without thought, you lose control of your message. But when you pause, even briefly, to organize your intention, you give your words the strength to resonate. Leadership communication is not about talking more, it is about saying what truly matters. The moment before you speak is sacred. It is the moment where wisdom meets expression, where you decide whether your words will create progress or simply noise. Thinking before you speak teaches you patience, and patience is the heartbeat of leadership. It prevents you from reacting emotionally, from speaking out of ego, and from saying things that you cannot take back. Leaders who master this skill know that silence is not weakness. It is power under control. When you think before you speak, you are not merely filtering your words, you are refining your influence. You are training yourself to evaluate the impact of what you're about to say. Ask yourself, will this inspire or discourage? Will it build or destroy? Will it unite or divide? These questions act as your inner compass. Without this awareness, even well-intentioned words can be misunderstood. The mind of a leader functions like a sculptor, shaping raw thoughts into purposeful language. This process demands discipline, focus, and emotional intelligence. In heated moments, it takes strength to pause, to breathe, and to consider your response instead of reacting impulsively. That small pause separates the reactive from the reflective, the ordinary from the exceptional. People trust leaders who respond thoughtfully because it shows maturity, control, and respect. A leader's greatest strength lies not in the sharpness of their words, but in the sharpness of their thinking. Every powerful communicator you admire, whether a teacher, a speaker, or a world leader, possesses the same invisible skill. They slow down their thoughts enough to give their words meaning. The human brain processes emotion faster than logic, and that's why untrained communication often becomes emotional rather than effective. Thinking before you speak allows you to balance the two, to acknowledge your emotions but not be ruled by them. This is not suppression, it is mastery. A leader does not deny emotion but directs it with wisdom. If you're angry, you learn to wait until your voice can deliver clarity instead of heat. If you're anxious, you wait until calmness can carry your words forward with confidence. Emotional timing is part of leadership timing. It's about recognizing that your voice is an amplifier of your inner state, and therefore, inner peace must come before outward expression. The calm mind produces the calm message. The scattered mind produces scattered speech. Before addressing a team, before making a promise, before responding to criticism, pause and think. Leaders who do this consistently develop what is known as verbal integrity. Their words match their actions, their tone matches their truth, and their communication earns lasting respect. Thinking before you speak also means considering your audience. True communication is never one-directional. It's not just about what you want to say, but how it will be received. A wise leader tailors their message to the mindset, emotions, and needs of the listener. You might have the right idea, but if you deliver it the wrong way, the message will fail. Thinking gives you time to adjust, to choose words that people can understand and connect with. Great communicators don't speak to impress, they speak to connect. They don't fill silence for the sake of sound, they use it to make meaning. The ability to think first allows you to replace reaction with intention, confusion with clarity, and confrontation with cooperation. This is how leaders turn potential conflicts into constructive conversations. One of the most underrated qualities of thinking before speaking is humility. It takes humility to pause and admit that your first thought might not be your best one. It takes courage to remain silent when your ego wants to speak. But that restraint is what gives your future words weight. When people notice that you don't speak carelessly, they listen more carefully. Your silence becomes as powerful as your voice because it shows thoughtfulness. Every great leader knows that words once spoken cannot be taken back. They can only be forgiven or forgotten. So why not ensure that the words you release carry wisdom and purpose? Thinking before speaking transforms you from a talker into a communicator, from a manager into a motivator, from a speaker into a strategist. Thinking before speaking is not limited to serious conversations. It applies everywhere, in casual talks, in digital messages, in public speeches, and in moments of conflict. In each case, your mental preparation decides the quality of your outcome. Imagine two leaders facing the same challenge. One reacts in frustration, the other pauses, considers, and responds with calm authority. The difference in outcome is massive. One spreads tension, the other builds trust. One loses control, the other earns respect. That is the unseen magic of thoughtfulness. It turns words into tools of creation rather than destruction. To think before you speak is to master the pause, to build bridges instead of barriers, and to turn every conversation into an opportunity for impact. When you think clearly, your words become precise. When your words are precise, your message becomes powerful. And when your message is powerful, your leadership becomes unforgettable. The greatest leaders are not those who speak the most, but those who speak the best. Those whose voices carry the weight of reflection, discipline, and care. So let your mind be your first language and your voice the echo of that clarity. Before you speak, pause. Before you respond, reflect. Before you decide, think. Because leadership begins not with the voice, but with the thought that gives that voice meaning. CHBR3 leadership is not proven in moments of comfort but in moments of chaos. And the way you communicate under pressure defines the depth of your leadership more than anything else. The art of calm communication is the discipline of mastering your emotions before they master you, the ability to remain centered while the world around you spins in uncertainty. A true leader does not raise their voice to gain control, they lower their tone to restore order. Calm communication is not the absence of strength. It is strength refined by wisdom. It is the expression of confidence that doesn't need noise to be heard. When a leader speaks calmly, even amid crisis, people listen not only to their words but to the composure that carries them. Calmness is contagious. It spreads stability in spaces filled with tension. It eases fear in moments of confusion, and it creates clarity when others are drowning in doubt. Your calm tone becomes a shelter for others, a reminder that leadership is not about reacting faster, but about responding smarter. When you speak with peace, you give permission for others to find peace too. The calm communicator is not detached or emotionless. They simply understand that control of self is the first rule of control in any situation. To develop calm communication, you must first recognize the power of your emotional energy. Every word you release carries the vibration of your state of mind. If you speak while angry, your words burn bridges. If you speak while afraid, your words spread panic. But if you speak with calm conviction, your words become anchors of stability. Leaders are human, but they are also emotional thermostats. They set the tone for everyone else. When others are shouting, you breathe. When others are blaming, you think. When others are losing patience, you pause. That pause is not weakness, it is wisdom in motion. Calm communication begins with self-regulation, the skill of managing your internal storms so your message is not distorted by them. This takes practice, awareness, and humility. You must learn to listen to your heartbeat before you listen to the noise of the world. Notice when your emotions start to rise, and instead of reacting, take a breath, ground yourself, and then speak. That moment of stillness creates the difference between chaos and control. The calm communicator does not rush to prove a point. They focus on preserving respect. Leaders who master calm communication know that tone is often louder than content. You can say the right thing the wrong way and lose your message completely. But if you say even difficult truths with calmness and compassion, people are more likely to accept and respect them. Calm communication turns disagreement into dialogue, criticism into conversation, and tension into trust. It allows you to handle confrontation without aggression and correction without humiliation. It is the art of guiding emotions without suppressing them. The calm communicator knows that listening is as powerful as speaking. They create space for others to express their views, making people feel heard before offering their perspective. This simple act of patience transforms the emotional atmosphere of any discussion. Calmness in speech does not come from arrogance or distance. It comes from understanding that leadership communication is about outcomes, not outbursts. Every time you remain composed in the face of provocation, you are silently teaching those around you that maturity is mightier than rage. In today's fast-paced, emotionally charged world, calm communication has become a rare and valuable leadership currency. People are drawn to those who remain unshaken, who can guide through storms without losing balance. The ability to stay calm doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to think clearly. Your presence should feel like an anchor, not a wave. When people sense your steadiness, they instinctively trust your leadership. Even in moments of disagreement, your calm voice becomes the sound of reason. This is why great leaders never speak from panic. They speak from purpose. They have trained themselves to pause before speaking, to evaluate what needs to be said and how it should be delivered. This kind of composure commands attention without demanding it. It inspires others to mirror your calmness, creating a culture of thoughtful communication within your circle, team, or organization. To cultivate calmness in communication, you must strengthen your inner dialogue. The way you talk to yourself shapes how you talk to others. If your mind is filled with fear, frustration, or insecurity, it will eventually spill out through your tone. Calm communication begins within. It is born from self-respect, self-trust, and self-understanding. Remind yourself that no situation is improved by anger, that no relationship is strengthened by shouting, and that no decision is made wiser through panic. The leader who remains calm keeps their power. The one who loses composure loses control. To remain calm, practice mindfulness. Learn to notice your breath, slow down your speech, and ground your body before responding. Silence, used wisely, is one of the calm communicator's greatest tools. A well-placed pause allows emotion to settle, gives the other person space to think, and gives you time to respond from clarity rather than impulse. Calm communication also means leading with empathy. When you communicate calmly, you show respect for others' emotions, even if you disagree with their opinions. You acknowledge feelings without surrendering to them. This balanced approach keeps conversations productive and relationships strong. In moments of tension, say less but mean more. Speak with intention. Every word you choose should serve a purpose, either to inform, to inspire, or to heal. Calm leaders know that sometimes the best response is simply to listen, to hold space for others to express their truth before offering guidance. That restraint is a mark of emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is the foundation of leadership credibility. In the end, calm communication is not a technique, it is a lifestyle, a reflection of your discipline, your maturity, and your wisdom. It is what separates leaders who ignite fear from those who inspire faith. Anyone can speak when things are easy, but only true leaders can speak calmly when everything is falling apart. Your calmness is your credibility, your tone is your influence, and your composure is your signature. When you learn to master the art of calm communication, you stop reacting to the world and start reshaping it. You no longer let emotion dictate your message, you let your message direct emotion. And that ultimately is the voice of leadership, steady in storms, peaceful in chaos, and powerful in silence. Chapter 4. In the world of leadership, many believe that power lies in the ability to speak persuasively, to command attention with words that move hearts and minds. But the deeper truth is that real leadership begins not with talking, but with listening. The power of listening is the power to understand before acting, to connect before directing, and to inspire through empathy rather than authority. Listening is not a passive act, it is an active discipline, a form of emotional intelligence that transforms communication from one-sided speech into meaningful connection. Most people hear, but few truly listen. Hearing is mechanical. It's the process of receiving sound. But listening is intentional. It's the choice to give someone your full attention, to quiet your inner dialogue long enough to understand theirs. The greatest leaders in history were not those who spoke the loudest, but those who listened the deepest. They paid attention to words, pauses, tone, and even silence. They read the emotions behind sentences, the hesitation behind confidence, and the needs behind complaints. To listen like a leader means to see beyond sound. It means to enter someone else's reality for a moment and make them feel seen, valued, and understood. Listening builds trust faster than any speech ever could. When people feel heard, they feel respected, and when they feel respected, they open up with honesty. Leadership thrives on this trust because it creates an environment where truth can exist without fear. Without listening, leadership becomes blind. Decisions are made on assumptions rather than insights, and relationships are built on misunderstanding instead of mutual respect. A leader who fails to listen eventually leads no one, because people stop sharing what's real. Listening is not only a courtesy, it's a strategy. Every great idea, every innovation, every act of progress begins with someone listening to a concern, to an observation, to an unspoken truth. A leader who listens gathers wisdom from others and uses it to make wiser decisions. You can't guide people effectively if you don't understand where they stand, what they need, or what they fear. Listening is the bridge between knowledge and empathy, between leadership and humanity. But to truly listen, you must silence your ego. Ego interrupts understanding. It makes you focus on how to respond instead of how to receive. The ego wants to speak, the leader wants to learn. To listen effectively, You must be humble enough to accept that you don't know everything, brave enough to hear what might be uncomfortable, and disciplined enough to resist the urge to interrupt. Many people think listening is waiting for their turn to speak. A leader knows it's waiting for their turn to understand. When you listen deeply, you learn more about people's motivations, fears, and values, the things that truly drive their behavior. You begin to see patterns that words alone cannot reveal. You start hearing the heart behind the voice. This is how leaders build emotional intelligence, not by talking, but by tuning in to the emotional frequencies around them. Listening also has the power to diffuse conflict. When emotions run high and tension fills the room, silence and attention can calm storms faster than arguments. When you listen, you show that you value the other person's perspective, even if you disagree with it. That acknowledgement alone reduces defensiveness. People stop shouting when they feel heard. A calm listener becomes a mirror that reflects back understanding instead of resistance. The leader who listens well doesn't need to fight for authority. Their empathy gives them influence. Listening turns confrontation into collaboration because it shifts the focus from winning to understanding. You are no longer trying to prove who's right. You are trying to discover what's true. Listening also means being present, fully present. In today's world of constant distraction, being truly present is a rare gift. Too often we half listen, glancing at our phones or planning our next task while someone is speaking. But real listening requires your mind, your heart, and your eyes. It means putting away the noise, looking into someone's eyes, and making them feel like they are the only person who matters in that moment. Presence is power, and when you give it through listening, you communicate respect without saying a word. It tells the other person, "You matter, your voice is worth my attention." That small act alone can transform how people feel about themselves and about you as their leader. Leaders who master the power of listening often find that their words later carry greater weight. Because when you listen first, you earn the right to speak. People are far more willing to accept your ideas when they know you've heard theirs. Listening builds relational credit. It deposits trust that you can later draw upon when difficult decisions must be made. It strengthens loyalty because it makes others feel included in the process of leadership. It creates a culture where people communicate openly, where creativity thrives, and where mistakes are discussed, not hidden. Listening turns leadership from command to collaboration. To become a powerful listener, practice stillness. Resist the impulse to fill silence. Let others finish their thoughts. Reflect back what you've heard to ensure clarity. Ask questions not to challenge, but to deepen understanding. This kind of listening doesn't just make you a better communicator, it makes you a better human being. It teaches patience, empathy, and self-control. It reminds you that leadership is not about being the loudest voice in the room, but about being the most attentive one. Ultimately, the power of listening lies in its quiet strength. It doesn't demand recognition, yet it changes everything it touches. It heals misunderstandings, reveals hidden truths, and nurtures trust. Listening is the invisible thread that ties leaders to their people, ideas to action, and vision to reality. The greatest speeches ever given were born from great listening, because before a leader can move others, they must first understand them. So listen with your ears, but also with your eyes, your mind, and your heart. Listen to what is said, but more importantly, to what is not said. Listen not to reply, but to understand, for in that understanding lies the truest form of leadership. A leadership that hears before it speaks, feels before it decides, and connects before it commands. Shiapti Fave, the essence of leadership communication lies not in how much you speak, but in how clearly and meaningfully you do it. For clarity is the foundation of influence, and purpose is the soul that gives your words life. When a leader speaks with clarity and purpose, confusion fades, direction emerges, and people begin to see not just what must be done, but why it matters. Clarity turns words into action, Purpose turns action into vision. Without these two, speech becomes noise and leadership becomes hollow. Speaking with clarity begins with thinking clearly, organizing your thoughts before you express them, understanding your intention before you release it into the world. Too many people speak to be heard, but leaders speak to be understood. The difference is subtle yet powerful. When you speak to be heard, your focus is on yourself, your tone, your style, your image. But when you speak to be understood, your focus shifts to the listener, their needs, their emotions, their capacity to receive your message. Leadership speech is not a performance, it is a transmission of purpose. Every sentence must carry a direction, a reason, a meaning that contributes to something larger than mere conversation. When people hear a leader speak, they should feel guided, not just informed, moved, not just educated. To speak with clarity, you must strip away the clutter of overcomplicated language and focus on what truly matters. The most powerful communicators in history have never been those who used the biggest words, but those who used the right words. Simplicity is not a weakness, it is the highest form of sophistication. When your message is simple, it becomes memorable. When it's clear, it becomes actionable. When it's purposeful, it becomes transformational. A leader's clarity comes from knowing their message inside out, from believing in it so deeply that it flows naturally without force. When you speak about something you truly believe in, your tone sharpens, your energy aligns, and your words find their rhythm. This authenticity creates clarity because it removes the fog of pretense. People trust what feels real, and real speech comes from conviction. Leaders who master clarity do not rush their words, they pace them with intention, emphasizing key points, pausing for reflection, and allowing silence to add weight to meaning. Every pause becomes part of the message, an invisible comma that gives listeners time to think. Purpose, on the other hand, is what gives clarity its power. Without purpose, even the clearest message lacks direction. Purpose is the internal compass that points your speech towards something meaningful. It is the why behind every what. When you speak with purpose, people sense it. They hear it in your tone, they feel it in your energy, and they believe it because it carries emotional truth. A leader's purpose-driven words ignite action not by command, but by conviction. You don't have to tell people what to do when your purpose is clear. They will feel compelled to act because they see your belief reflected in your speech. Purpose creates momentum. It transforms communication into leadership. Every time you speak, ask yourself, what do I want people to understand, and what do I want them to feel? Both are essential because logic moves the mind, but emotion moves the heart. A leader must speak to both. Clarity reaches the intellect, purpose reaches the soul. Together, they create inspiration. Speaking with clarity and purpose also requires emotional intelligence. It's not just what you say, but how your words land. Leaders must be aware of timing, tone, and context. The same message delivered with impatience can sound like pressure, but when spoken calmly, it sounds like encouragement. Your intention must match your expression. Clarity fails when your tone contradicts your message. That's why emotional awareness is vital. You must align your inner state with your outer communication. Before addressing others, align yourself, breathe, center your mind, and remind yourself of the reason you're speaking. When your emotions are steady, your words flow like water. Clear, calm, and purposeful. A key part of clarity is structure. Leaders who speak effectively don't just talk, they guide. Every message should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Start by setting the intention, what you want your audience to understand. Then, support it with examples or reasoning that make it relatable. Finally, conclude with a takeaway that leaves no room for confusion. Is not only about words, it's about guidance. People need direction, not decoration. As a leader, your clarity becomes the map they follow when uncertainty clouds their path. Remember, when communication fails, leadership fails, because words are how vision travels. Without clarity, even the best vision dies in translation. Purposeful clarity also demands courage. Sometimes, what needs to be said is uncomfortable. Leaders must speak the truth, even when it shakes the room. But clarity doesn't mean harshness. It means honesty with empathy. The goal is not to hurt but to help. When you speak truth with compassion, you earn respect. People may not always agree with you, but they will always remember your integrity. Clarity does not fear misunderstanding because it is anchored in sincerity. It doesn't bend to please, it stands to guide. And when your purpose is genuine, your words become timeless, echoing long after the moment has passed. To develop clarity and purpose in speech, you must practice three things: preparation, reflection, and presence. Preparation ensures that you know your message before you deliver it. Reflection ensures that your message aligns with your values. Presence ensures that your audience feels your sincerity in real time. Together, these qualities create communication that is not just heard, but remembered. When you speak, let every word be deliberate, every sentence intentional, and every tone aligned with your purpose. Avoid the temptation to fill space with noise. Instead, fill it with meaning. In the end, speaking with clarity and purpose is not about sounding perfect. It's about sounding real. It's about cutting through distraction with direction and transforming uncertainty into understanding. When your words become clear, people stop guessing. When your purpose becomes visible, people start believing. A true leader uses their voice as a torch, one that lights the path, not blinds the followers. So, speak with vision in your mind, conviction in your heart, and truth in your tone. Let your words be steady enough to guide and strong enough to endure. For when you speak with clarity and purpose, you do more than communicate. You lead, you inspire, and you awaken the potential in everyone who listens. Chapter 6. The greatest mistake many aspiring leaders make is believing that leadership is all about talking, when in truth it is equally, if not more, about listening not just with your ears but with your mind, heart, and presence. Active listening is the silent strength behind powerful communication. It is the art of understanding before responding, of valuing others' voices before asserting your own. A true leader knows that to talk like a leader, you must first learn to listen like one. Leadership is not a monologue, it is a dialogue of respect, empathy, and awareness. When people feel heard, they open their minds. When they feel ignored, they close their hearts. Active listening builds trust, the currency of influence. Without trust, even the most eloquent words lose their power. Listening transforms communication from one-sided instruction into mutual connection, and it allows a leader to speak with relevance because they understand the pulse of their people. Great communicators like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., and Mahatma Gandhi were not only gifted speakers but remarkable listeners. They listened to pain, to hopes, to silence, and from that understanding, they shaped words that healed and united. Active listening goes far beyond simply hearing words. It is about interpreting emotions, reading tone, noticing pauses, and sensing what remains unsaid. Most people listen to reply, but leaders listen to understand. The difference between the two defines the quality of leadership communication. When you listen actively, you are fully present. You do not interrupt, judge, or prepare your answer while the other person is speaking. Instead, you create a space where they feel seen and respected. This psychological safety is what encourages honesty and innovation in teams. A leader who listens deeply gathers insight that no speech or report can provide. People reveal their true thoughts only when they feel genuinely heard. Listening, therefore, becomes a tool of discovery, a way to uncover ideas, emotions, and potential that might otherwise remain hidden. In moments of conflict, active listening becomes a bridge between misunderstanding and resolution. It allows leaders to respond with wisdom instead of reaction, empathy instead of ego. The practice of active listening begins with focus. In an age where distractions dominate every moment, giving someone your full attention has become a rare and powerful act. When you look a person in the eye, put away your phone, and truly engage, you send a message far louder than words. You matter. This simple act creates an atmosphere of respect, When you give your attention, you earn attention. Leadership is a mirror. The way you treat others reflects back on how they treat you. If you listen with care, your words will later carry greater weight. Clarity in communication begins with clarity in listening. To understand what needs to be said, you must first understand what has been said. Every great decision, every powerful message, every movement that inspires begins with a leader who listened first. Active listening also requires humility, the willingness to accept that others may hold valuable insights you do not. Many leaders fail because they believe their position gives them superior wisdom. But leadership is not about knowing everything. It is about learning constantly. Listening is how you learn. Every person you meet carries a story, a perspective, a truth that can enrich your understanding of the world. When you listen with curiosity rather than judgment, you transform every conversation into a lesson. Great leaders seek feedback not as criticism, but as information for growth. They do not fear opposing opinions because they understand that diversity of thought sharpens clarity. Listening does not weaken authority, it strengthens credibility. People trust leaders who show that their voices matter. When followers see that their leader listens, they feel ownership of the mission and collective purpose becomes unstoppable. Another dimension of active listening is emotional awareness. Sometimes the real message lies beneath the surface of words, in tone, hesitation, or body language. A skilled leader learns to listen beyond language, to feel the emotional rhythm of conversation. When someone speaks in frustration, they may be expressing fear. When they remain silent, they may be hiding disappointment. Emotional listening means tuning your empathy to detect what logic might miss. This awareness allows you to respond in ways that heal rather than harm. It turns conversations into opportunities for connection. Empathy does not mean agreement, it means understanding. When people feel understood, even disagreement becomes constructive. Leaders who listen with empathy can turn conflict into collaboration and criticism into cooperation. Active listening also improves decision-making. When you gather perspectives from various sources, you reduce blind spots. You make choices not based on assumptions but on real understanding. Listening prevents the arrogance of isolation, the dangerous mindset that believes one person's view is enough. A wise leader surrounds themselves with voices that challenge and expand their thinking. Listening is not passive, it is an active strategy for growth. The best ideas often come from the quietest voices, those who rarely speak up but hold profound insights. A leader who listens deeply will always have an advantage because they collect truth before acting. To master the art of active listening, practice silence as a form of strength. Do not rush to fill every pause. Sometimes, the most powerful moment in a conversation is the one where you simply remain still and allow space for the other person to think. Silence invites honesty, it encourages reflection. As a leader, when you pause before replying, you demonstrate control and respect. This pause also gives you time to process emotions, ensuring your response aligns with wisdom rather than impulse. Over time, this habit of patient listening builds a reputation of calm authority. People begin to associate your silence with depth, your attention with care, and your words with meaning. Finally, active listening transforms your voice itself. When you listen well, your future words gain precision because they come from understanding. You speak less but say more. You talk slower but reach deeper. Listening purifies speech. It removes arrogance and replaces it with empathy. It refines tone, moderates emotion, and strengthens authenticity. True leaders listen not because they have to, but because they want to. They see every conversation as a window into human nature and every voice as a note in the symphony of leadership. In essence, the power of active listening lies in its ability to connect hearts before minds. It turns communication into collaboration and followers into believers. A leader who listens deeply speaks wisely. So, before you seek to inspire others with your words, learn to inspire them with your attention. For leadership begins not with talking, but with hearing, and the one who listens like a leader will always speak like one. Chapter 7. The essence of leadership is influence, and the art of influence is woven through the fabric of words, spoken not merely to inform but to transform, to move minds, stir hearts, and awaken purpose within others. Influence is not manipulation, for manipulation seeks control while influence seeks connection. A true leader influences by aligning their words with truth, integrity, and intention so that every syllable they speak carries both direction and depth. The art of influence through words begins with understanding that speech is power, and like all power, it demands responsibility. Every word a leader utters has the potential to build or break, inspire or discourage, lead or mislead. Words are not empty sounds, they are seeds that take root in the soil of human emotion and thought. When spoken with wisdom, they grow into loyalty, motivation, and transformation. When spoken carelessly, they breed doubt, confusion, and resentment. Thus, to talk like a leader is to choose words that plant confidence rather than fear, courage rather than hesitation, and unity rather than division. Influence is never accidental, it is intentional. The way a leader crafts their message determines whether it merely passes through ears or penetrates the soul. Influence through words is not about eloquence alone, it is about emotional precision. You must know what your audience feels before you can decide what they need to hear. A leader influences by listening first, by reading the unspoken emotions in the room, and then speaking directly to those emotions. If the people are anxious, your words must bring calm. If they are doubtful, your tone must bring assurance. If they are wary, your energy must bring renewal. This emotional awareness transforms speech into a force of empathy rather than authority. People follow leaders who make them feel understood, because understanding breeds trust, and trust is the gateway to influence. A leader who speaks from the heart to the hearts of others never needs to demand loyalty. It arises naturally. Influence is built not on commands but on connections, and words are the bridges that carry that connection. To influence is to awaken belief, not belief in you, but belief in what you represent. Your words must be larger than your ego. They must serve the vision that guides your leadership. The power of influence also lies in storytelling, for stories are the oldest and most effective form of communication known to humanity. A well-told story has the power to bypass logic and go straight to emotion. When a leader tells a story, they are not simply entertaining, they are embedding values, teaching lessons, and creating shared meaning. A story makes a message memorable because people might forget facts, but they rarely forget feelings. The story you tell becomes the vision your team holds onto when times are uncertain. Think of how leaders throughout history, like Winston Churchill, Nelson Mandela, or Malala Yousafzai, used stories to ignite courage and unity. Their words painted pictures of what could be, transforming hope into conviction. To master influence, you must learn to frame your ideas within narratives that people can see themselves in. Speak not as a lecturer above your audience, but as a storyteller among them, drawing them into a vision they feel a part of. Another key to influencing through words is authenticity. People can sense when speech is rehearsed rather than real, when enthusiasm is forced rather than felt. Authenticity gives weight to your words because it assures others that your message comes from genuine conviction. When your words reflect your values, they resonate. When they contradict your actions, they crumble. Influence that lasts cannot be fabricated. It must be earned through consistency. Every time you speak, people are not just hearing your message, they are measuring your sincerity. Thus, the most persuasive words are those that match your character. A leader whose words align with their actions will never need to shout to be heard, for their integrity amplifies their voice. Timing also shapes influence. A wise leader knows when to speak, and when silence speaks louder. Influence is not about flooding every space with words. It's about choosing the right moment when your message will land with maximum impact. Too early, and the world may not be ready to receive it. Too late, and the moment may have passed. Timing gives your speech rhythm and relevance. When your words meet the right moment, they become unforgettable. A leader's ability to sense timing reflects their emotional intelligence, the awareness of when others are most open to influence. Moreover, influence requires repetition with variation. Great communicators understand that important messages must be repeated, but never in the same tone or form. Repetition cements ideas in the listener's mind, while variation keeps them engaged. Influence grows with familiarity, yet it thrives on freshness. Think of the way great leaders continually return to their core message: freedom, justice, unity, purpose, but each time they speak with new imagery and renewed passion. Their words evolve as their followers evolve, keeping the vision alive and relevant. Influence, therefore, is not achieved in a single speech, but through a consistent pattern of communication that reinforces belief over time. The tone of influence is another hidden art. Words carry meaning, but tone gives them soul. A calm tone can disarm anger, a firm tone can instill discipline, a hopeful tone can ignite resilience. Leaders who master their tone command emotion, and emotion drives action. Influence is not only about what you say, but how your voice carries it. Whether it trembles with fear or vibrates with faith, the energy behind your words determines how deeply they are felt. A true leader speaks from a centered, confident state, one that projects certainty even in uncertainty. This steadiness becomes contagious, spreading reassurance among listeners. Finally, influence through words is sustained by vision. Without vision, your words become directionless. They may sound beautiful but lead nowhere. Vision gives your speech purpose. It connects today's struggle to tomorrow's success. Every time a leader speaks, they must remind their people not only of what is, but of what could be. Vision turns influence into inspiration. It transforms leadership from a role into a mission. When your words consistently point toward a shared dream, people begin to see that dream as their own. That is the highest level of influence, not control, but alignment. You no longer need to push people forward. They walk beside you willingly because your words have awakened belief within them. In conclusion, the art of influence through words is the art of leadership itself. It is not about dominating conversations, but directing hearts toward higher purpose. Every word you speak as a leader should carry weight, honesty, and vision. Speak with empathy to connect, with clarity to guide, with passion to ignite, and with consistency to sustain. Your words are not just sounds. They are instruments of transformation, tools of unity, and echoes of your legacy. A leader's voice may fade with time, but their influence, born of authentic words and noble intent, endures forever in the minds and souls they have touched. Chapter 8 Communication is not confined to words alone. In fact, the majority of leadership presence is communicated through what is unspoken, through gestures, expressions, posture, and the energy one projects before uttering a single word. To talk like a leader, one must first learn to move, stand, and express like one, for the body often speaks louder than the tongue. Leadership begins long before the speech begins. It begins in the silent signals that command attention, radiate confidence, and inspire trust. Body language is the invisible force that reinforces or undermines your words, and every movement you make either strengthens your message or weakens it. When a leader walks into a room, people form impressions in seconds, not because of what is said, but because of what is seen. A firm posture, a calm face, and a steady gaze can communicate authority without aggression and confidence without arrogance. The body becomes the vessel of influence, the living expression of the leader's inner discipline. Your body language must always match your message. Incongruence between the two breeds doubt. You cannot speak of vision with slouched shoulders, or of courage with eyes that avoid contact, or of unity with crossed arms that signal defensiveness. Leadership communication is a symphony of verbal and nonverbal harmony, and mastery of this balance is what transforms ordinary speakers into extraordinary leaders. The first step to mastering body language is awareness, being conscious of how you move, how you sit, how you use your hands, and how your presence fills space. A leader's awareness begins with stillness, because stillness is control. Nervous fidgeting, restless shifting, or forced gestures reveal insecurity and diminish authority. When you are grounded, you project composure. When you are composed, people follow leaders who seem sure of themselves, and that assurance begins in the body. Stand tall, not rigid but balanced, with your weight evenly distributed and your shoulders relaxed yet strong. This posture tells others that you are in command, not of them. True leadership begins with self-command. When you move, move with purpose. Every gesture should serve your message, not distract from it. Overly dramatic movements can appear theatrical, while too little expression makes you seem detached. The balance lies in controlled animation, using your hands and expressions to amplify key points naturally, as though your body is translating the passion behind your words. Eye contact is the most powerful tool of nonverbal leadership. It connects you to your audience, communicates sincerity, and establishes trust. Avoiding eye contact signals fear or dishonesty, while maintaining it signals confidence and engagement. But true leaders know that eye contact is not about dominance, it is about connection. When you look at someone while speaking, you are not asserting control. You are saying, "I see you, and I value your attention." When addressing a group, shift your gaze across the room, pausing briefly on individuals to make everyone feel included. A leader's eyes are calm yet alert, firm yet compassionate. They do not wander aimlessly, they lead silently. Your eyes are the mirrors of your conviction, and when your belief in your message shines through them, you no longer have to convince people with words, they feel your authenticity. Facial expressions are equally vital. The human face is capable of expressing countless emotions, and in leadership your face becomes the canvas on which your intent is painted. A warm, genuine smile can disarm tension, while a serious, focused look can command attention. The secret lies in authenticity. Smile when it feels real, maintain seriousness when the message demands gravity. Forced expressions are easily detected and erode credibility. The ability to control your facial expressions does not mean suppressing emotion, it means channeling it. Leaders must show emotion with discipline, compassion without weakness, strength without harshness, passion without chaos. When your expressions flow naturally from inner sincerity, they amplify the power of your speech. Gestures, when used thoughtfully, reinforce meaning. Open hand gestures convey honesty and openness. Pointing or clenched fists may come across as aggressive. Use gestures that match your message. Open palms when inviting collaboration, subtle hand movements when emphasizing key points, and stillness when you want listeners to absorb meaning. The rhythm of your gestures should align with your words, creating a flow that feels natural rather than mechanical. Remember, your body should never compete with your message. It should complement it. Gestures that are too frequent or exaggerated distract from your words, while the absence of any movement can make your delivery monotonous. The most powerful communicators strike a rhythm between stillness and movement, creating visual interest without chaos. Proximity and spatial awareness are also part of nonverbal mastery. How you occupy space determines how your presence is perceived. Leaders neither invade others' personal space nor withdraw timidly from it. They navigate space respectfully and confidently. When speaking to someone, lean slightly forward to show engagement, but maintain enough distance to convey respect. When addressing a group, move with deliberation, not pacing nervously but walking purposefully to different points, anchoring your presence in the room. Space, when used wisely, becomes part of your message. It can signal openness when you expand your gestures or confidence when you take your rightful place in a room without shrinking back. Tone of voice, though technically verbal, is deeply intertwined with nonverbal communication. The tone reveals emotion, and emotion shapes perception. A steady, controlled tone projects authority. A warm, empathetic tone builds trust. A passionate tone ignites energy. Modulate your tone to match your message, rising with enthusiasm, softening with compassion, firming with conviction. Monotony drains life from even the best words, while vocal variation keeps the listener engaged. A leader's tone should be both commanding and caring, creating the balance between respect and authority. The pauses you take are as meaningful as the words themselves. Silence gives gravity to speech, allowing your message to sink in. Nonverbal communication also involves energy, the invisible aura that emanates from your body and presence. People feel your energy before they hear your words. If your energy is anxious, they sense it. If it is calm and confident, they mirror it. This is why emotional regulation is essential in leadership communication. Your inner state shapes your outer expression. Before speaking, center yourself, breathe deeply, align your posture, focus your mind on purpose, and let your presence settle. When you speak from calm conviction rather than tension, your non-verbal signals naturally align with your message. In the end, mastering body language and nonverbal communication is about congruence, ensuring that your actions, expressions, and tone all align with your words. People may forget what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. A leader who speaks confidently but whose body betrays doubt sends mixed signals that weaken trust. But when your voice, body, and intention are in harmony, you become magnetic. You draw attention not by demanding it, but by deserving it. Leadership is not just heard, it is seen and felt. So stand tall with humility, speak with strength wrapped in kindness, and let your presence communicate the integrity behind your words. For in every movement, every glance, every pause, and every breath, your leadership speaks, long before you ever open your mouth. Shietianine confidence is the lifeblood of leadership communication, the invisible quality that transforms ordinary words into commands of respect and sources of inspiration. Without confidence, even the most carefully chosen words lose their strength, but when spoken with belief, even the simplest sentence can move hearts and shift destinies. To talk like a leader, one must first learn to sound like one, not through arrogance or volume, but through authenticity and self-assurance that radiate from within. A confident voice is not necessarily loud, it is steady, composed, and deliberate. It carries conviction because it comes from a place of clarity and self-trust. Confidence is born not from perfection, but from preparation and purpose. When you know what you are talking about, when you believe in what you stand for, and when you have rehearsed your message until it becomes part of your soul, confidence naturally flows. Many people mistake confidence for dominance, but leadership confidence is never about overpowering others. It is about empowering them through your calm certainty. The voice of a leader does not shout to be heard, it resonates to be felt. Confidence begins with inner alignment. Your voice is a reflection of your state of mind, and if you doubt yourself, your voice will betray that doubt no matter how hard you try to conceal it. A trembling voice, a hesitant tone, or uneven pacing all stem from internal uncertainty. Therefore, before you can build external confidence, you must cultivate internal stability. This requires self-awareness and acceptance, recognizing your strengths, embracing your imperfections, and trusting that your message holds value. No great leader began perfectly confident. They built it through experience, resilience, and repetition. Confidence grows each time you speak truthfully, face your fear, and rise above self-doubt. Practice speaking not for perfection, but for presence. The more you align your inner belief with your outer expression, the stronger your voice becomes. Your breathing plays a central role in confidence. Shallow, erratic breaths produce a shaky tone, while deep, controlled breathing grounds your voice in calm authority. Before you speak, take a moment to breathe deeply and center yourself. This not only oxygenates your body but also resets your mind. The breath connects thought to speech and keeps your tone balanced even in high-pressure situations. Confident speakers breathe naturally, allowing pauses between ideas instead of rushing to fill silence. Pausing is not weakness, it is strength. It shows control and gives your audience time to absorb your message. Silence, when used intentionally, magnifies your words because it reflects composure. A nervous person fears silence. A confident leader owns it. Confidence in your voice also depends on your tone and pace. Speak too quickly, and you appear nervous or unsure. speak too slowly, and you risk losing engagement. The key is balance, speaking with enough pace to maintain energy, but with enough pause to emphasize importance. The tone should be warm yet firm, expressive yet composed. Confidence does not come from monotone speech, but from vocal variety, the rise and fall of your voice that keeps listeners emotionally connected. Modulate your tone to reflect sincerity, conviction, and empathy. Your voice should carry not just information but emotion. It should vibrate with purpose. People may forget your words, but they will never forget the way your voice made them feel. Body language also plays a major role in vocal confidence. Your posture directly affects the strength and resonance of your voice. When you stand tall, with open shoulders and relaxed muscles, your lungs expand fully, allowing your voice to project naturally. When you hunch or tighten your body, your breathing becomes shallow and your tone weakens. Confidence is felt before it is heard, and your physical stance sends signals to both your mind and your audience. Stand as if your message matters, and it will. Maintain steady eye contact as you speak. It anchors your presence and connects your voice to your listeners. Avoid fidgeting, unnecessary movements, or looking away too often, as these habits dilute authority. Your stillness, paired with deliberate gestures, communicates control and poise. Another vital element in building vocal confidence is preparation. Even the most naturally gifted speakers rely on preparation to maintain clarity under pressure. Preparation eliminates uncertainty and allows spontaneity to thrive within structure. Know your message deeply, understand your key points, and anticipate questions. When you are prepared, you speak from a position of knowledge, not memory. This difference frees you from fear of forgetting and allows your voice to flow with natural confidence. The most confident leaders are those who have done their inner and outer homework. They understand both their topic and their audience. Preparation gives confidence direction, and direction gives your voice authority. Confidence also grows through repetition and exposure. The more you speak, the more comfortable you become with hearing your own voice in different situations. Every opportunity to speak, be it a meeting, conversation, or public event, is a chance to strengthen your vocal presence. At first, your confidence may fluctuate, but with each experience, you develop rhythm, timing, and composure. Leaders are not born with unshakable confidence. They train it like a muscle. Each word spoken with courage adds to your strength. Each failure faced with grace adds to your resilience, and each success celebrated humbly adds to your wisdom. Over time, your voice becomes your signature, a reflection of your journey, your principles, and your power. Another aspect of confident speech is authenticity. Your voice must sound like you, not like an imitation of someone else. When you try to copy another's style, your words lose their natural rhythm. Authenticity brings ease, and ease brings confidence. Speak in your natural tone, but elevate it with purpose. Let your voice express who you are and what you stand for. Authentic confidence does not require validation from others. It flows from self-acceptance and a sense of mission. When you speak with genuine passion, your confidence becomes contagious. People are drawn to leaders whose voices reflect not arrogance but assurance, not perfection but conviction. Finally, remember that confidence is not the absence of fear, it is mastery over it. Even the greatest speakers feel nervous before addressing others, but they have learned to transform that energy into enthusiasm. Nerves show that you care. Confidence comes from channeling that care productively. The moment you shift your focus from how you are being perceived to the value you are delivering, fear begins to fade. Leadership confidence is not about proving yourself. It's about serving your purpose with unwavering belief. Every time you speak, remind yourself that your voice carries meaning, that someone in your audience needs your message, and that your role is not to impress but to impact. In the end, building confidence in your voice is a journey of self-mastery. It requires awareness, preparation, authenticity, and courage. When your words arise from belief, when your tone carries calm strength, and when your silence speaks volumes, you embody the essence of leadership communication. A confident voice is not born overnight. It is forged in the fires of experience, failure, and perseverance. So speak boldly, not because you are fearless, but because your message deserves to be heard. For in every tone of confidence lies the echo of leadership, and in every steady voice lies the power to inspire change. CTR 10. Listening is the silent strength of true leadership, the invisible art that transforms communication from mere exchange into meaningful connection. While most people speak to be heard, great leaders listen to understand, and this difference defines their influence. Talking like a leader begins not with commanding words, but with intentional listening, the kind of listening that makes others feel seen, valued, and respected. Leadership is not about having all the answers. It is about creating an environment where answers emerge through collaboration, empathy, and open dialogue. Listening like a leader means being fully present, silencing your internal chatter, and paying attention not only to what is said but also to what remains unspoken. It means observing tone, emotion, and body language to grasp the full story behind the words. When you listen deeply, you gain insight into people's motivations, fears, and needs, allowing you to respond with wisdom rather than assumption. Most people listen to reply. Leaders listen to understand. They know that every person has a perspective worth hearing, and by making space for others' voices, they strengthen their own authority. To listen like a leader, you must first discipline your attention. In today's world of constant distraction, genuine attention is rare, and that rarity makes it powerful. When a leader gives their undivided attention, it feels like a gift, a moment of respect that builds trust instantly. The mind naturally wants to wander or plan a response while someone else is talking, but leadership demands stillness and focus. When you listen fully, you communicate non-verbally that the speaker's thoughts matter, that their presence is worthy of your time. This level of respect encourages openness and honesty, leading to conversations that are productive and meaningful. Great listeners use their silence strategically. They resist the urge to interrupt, correct, or dominate the conversation. Instead, they create space for others to express themselves freely, knowing that silence often invites truth. Listening also strengthens empathy, which is at the heart of leadership communication. Empathy is not merely understanding another's situation. It is feeling what they feel without judgment. When you listen empathetically, you do not just hear words, you hear emotions. You begin to sense the frustration behind a complaint, the insecurity behind resistance, or the hope behind a suggestion. This level of emotional intelligence enables you to respond in a way that addresses root causes rather than surface issues. A leader who listens empathetically becomes a source of comfort and inspiration, someone who others willingly follow because they feel understood. True empathy cannot be faked. It is developed through genuine care for people. When you approach conversations with curiosity rather than control, you uncover truths that transform how you lead. Listening is also a powerful diagnostic tool. It helps leaders identify problems before they escalate, detect unspoken tensions, and discover opportunities hidden in feedback. When you pay attention to how people express themselves, their tone, their pauses, their choice of words, you begin to see patterns that reveal the health of your team or organization. Many leaders fail because they stop listening once they achieve authority, believing they already know enough. But the greatest leaders remain lifelong listeners. They understand that wisdom grows not from speaking more, but from hearing more. Listening keeps you humble and connected to reality, reminding you that leadership is service, not superiority. A leader who listens regularly stays adaptable, informed, and trusted because they never lose touch with the voices that matter most, the people they lead. Another element of leadership listening is asking powerful questions. Listening is not passive. It is an active process of engagement. Great leaders use questions to draw out clarity, provoke reflection, and encourage growth. Instead of assuming, they ask, "Can you tell me more about that?" Or, "What do you think would work best?" These questions not only demonstrate humility, but also empower others to think critically. When people are invited to contribute, they feel ownership and commitment. A leader who listens and questions wisely fosters a culture where everyone's ideas are valued, and that culture becomes fertile ground for innovation. The act of listening becomes an act of leadership itself. It builds relationships, sparks creativity, and nurtures loyalty. Listening also demands patience and self-control. Not every conversation will be comfortable, and not every speaker will be articulate or agreeable. Yet, a leader's strength lies in staying composed and receptive, even when the message is difficult to hear. Reacting defensively shuts down communication. Responding calmly opens it up. When people see that their honesty will not be punished, they will speak more freely, giving you access to the truth you need to lead effectively. Leadership listening is not about pleasing everyone, but about understanding everyone enough to make fair, informed decisions. You may not always agree with what you hear, but by listening first, you show that you value others' input, which in turn earns their respect even when outcomes differ. To talk like a leader, your listening must shape your speaking. When you listen deeply, your responses become sharper, wiser, and more impactful because they are rooted in real understanding. Listening refines your message. It teaches you the language of your audience so that your words resonate more powerfully. Leaders who skip listening often speak past people instead of to them, missing the emotional and intellectual connection that drives engagement. Your words gain authority when they are shaped by what you have heard. Speaking after listening ensures that your message addresses real needs rather than imagined ones. It also prevents unnecessary conflict, because people are far less likely to resist what they feel they have helped shape. Furthermore, listening enhances trust, the foundation of all leadership. People do not follow titles, they follow trust, and trust is built when people feel heard. A leader who listens consistently builds loyalty that no speech can command. Trust cannot be demanded, it must be earned through presence, patience, and integrity. When people share their concerns and see them acknowledged or acted upon, their confidence in leadership deepens. Listening becomes a mirror through which people see the values of their leader: humility, respect, and fairness. In moments of crisis, it is often listening, not speaking, that restores unity and calm. The simple act of hearing someone's pain or perspective can dissolve barriers and open pathways to solutions that logic alone cannot find. Finally, listening like a leader is about balance, knowing when to stay silent and when to speak. Silence is not weakness, it is a space where meaning grows. Leaders who master silence understand that every pause carries power, that every moment of reflection enriches the dialogue. Listening is an act of generosity, and like all acts of generosity, it requires intention and heart. When you listen not for yourself but for others, your leadership transforms from command to connection. The power of listening lies not in collecting words, but in creating understanding, and in that understanding lies influence. When your ears lead before your mouth does, when your attention becomes your greatest form of respect, and when your empathy becomes your strategy, you no longer just talk like a leader, you become one. Chapter 11. Authenticity and integrity are the twin pillars of leadership communication, the invisible forces that give your words credibility and your presence lasting influence. To talk like a leader, you must first speak like yourself, not the version of yourself that tries to please everyone or appear perfect, but the version that is grounded in truth, self-awareness, and moral clarity. People can sense when words are hollow, rehearsed, or manipulative. They can also sense when words are real, heartfelt, and aligned with values. Authentic communication is not about putting on a performance. It's about removing the performance altogether. A leader's voice gains power when it reflects honesty, vulnerability, and conviction. Integrity means your words and actions align, that what you say in public matches who you are in private. It is about consistency, the ability to show up with the same principles no matter the situation. Without integrity, charisma becomes manipulation, and influence becomes temporary. But when authenticity and integrity are present, your voice becomes a mirror of trust that inspires others to listen, believe, and follow. Authentic speech begins with knowing who you are. Leadership communication starts with self-reflection, because if you don't understand your own values, goals, and boundaries, your words will lack foundation. The greatest communicators are those who have spent time in honest introspection, identifying not only their strengths but also their weaknesses. They understand what they stand for, and more importantly, what they will not compromise. When you are clear about your principles, your speech gains confidence and coherence. You no longer chase approval, because your words come from purpose rather than pressure. Authentic leaders speak from their experiences, not borrowed ideas. They share their lessons openly, even the uncomfortable ones. Vulnerability is not a weakness in leadership. It is proof of authenticity. When you share failures as openly as successes, you humanize your message, showing others that growth is possible through imperfection. People do not follow flawless leaders, they follow genuine ones. Integrity, on the other hand, is authenticity in action. It's the daily discipline of living your truth and honoring your word. Integrity is what transforms a good communicator into a great leader. When people see that your words and actions match, your credibility becomes unshakable. Every promise kept strengthens your voice. Every broken word weakens it. Leaders often underestimate how closely their followers listen and observe, but leadership magnifies everything: your tone, your choices, your consistency. If you preach respect but speak condescendingly, your message collapses. If you promote teamwork but act selfishly, your influence fades. Integrity is not built through speeches, it is built through behavior. It's what gives your words gravity. A leader who speaks with integrity does not need to demand loyalty. It comes naturally, because people trust what they can rely on. Speaking authentically also requires the courage to stand firm in your beliefs, even when it's uncomfortable. Many people sacrifice truth for popularity, but leaders who talk with authenticity understand that honesty may not always win applause, yet it always earns respect. They do not twist their message to fit trends or echo what others want to hear. Instead, they communicate what is right, necessary, and beneficial for the greater good. Authenticity is not about being brutally honest without empathy. It is about being transparent with care. It means speaking truth with compassion, delivering hard truths without hostility, and offering feedback in a way that uplifts rather than humiliates. When people know that your honesty comes from integrity rather than ego, they will accept your words even when they sting. True leadership speech strikes a balance between courage and kindness, conviction and compassion. To speak with authenticity, you must also remove pretense. Many people believe leadership speech requires a special tone, vocabulary, or authority, but the opposite is true. Authentic communication is natural, conversational, and sincere. It is not about sounding impressive, it's about being understood. Simplicity is the language of authenticity. When your words flow from genuine intent, they carry emotional clarity that no fancy rhetoric can replace. People remember authenticity because it connects to their emotions. They forget perfection because it feels distant and cold. Authentic leaders use stories, personal examples, and relatable language to build bridges of trust. They do not hide behind titles or jargon. They reveal their humanity. That humanity becomes their greatest strength because it reminds others that leadership is not about hierarchy but connection. Integrity also shapes how a leader handles mistakes. No one is perfect, and even the most authentic communicators will occasionally say the wrong thing, misjudge a situation, or fall short of expectations. The difference is how they respond. Leaders with integrity admit their errors openly, take responsibility without excuses, and make amends swiftly. This kind of accountability strengthens credibility far more than pretending to be flawless. People do not lose respect when you fail. They lose respect when you deny or deflect. Owning your mistakes is an act of strength, because it proves that your commitment to truth outweighs your concern for image. Integrity means being the same person when no one is watching as you are when everyone is. It means your words serve your values, not your ego. Authenticity in speech also requires listening to yourself. Before you speak, ask yourself, do I truly believe what I am about to say? Does it align with my values? Am I saying this to express truth or to gain approval? These internal questions filter out insincerity and ensure your words come from the right place. When your inner voice aligns with your outer voice, you create harmony that audiences can feel. This harmony builds magnetic presence, the kind that draws attention without effort. People are naturally drawn to those who are comfortable in their own truth. They trust such speakers because authenticity resonates at a subconscious level. It feels safe, honest, and real in a world full of noise and pretense. Leaders who speak with authenticity and integrity also inspire authenticity in others. When people witness a leader communicating honestly, admitting vulnerabilities, and staying true to values under pressure, they feel permission to do the same. Authenticity spreads like light. It gives others courage to be real. In teams, this creates a culture of transparency and psychological safety where people can speak openly without fear. Communication flows freely, creativity thrives, and trust deepens. Leadership, at its core, is not about commanding others. It's about setting an example that others willingly follow. Your authenticity becomes the standard that guides behavior across the organization or community. In the end, speaking with authenticity and integrity is about harmony between thought and speech, intention and action, self and society. It is about using your voice not to manipulate, but to motivate, not to impress, but to express truth. When you speak from authenticity, people feel it. When you act with integrity, they believe it. Together, they create a voice that cannot be faked, a voice that endures. So, when you speak, let your words reflect your principles, your heart, and your humanity. Let your truth be consistent enough to withstand doubt and strong enough to inspire others, because a leader who speaks with authenticity does not just command attention, they awaken trust. And trust, once earned, becomes the most powerful sound in the language of leadership. SAPTR 12. Emotional intelligence is the heartbeat of effective leadership communication, the silent rhythm that gives life, depth, and connection to every word spoken. To talk like a leader, you must learn not only how to express ideas clearly, but also how to manage emotions, both yours and others. Emotional intelligence, often called EQ, is the ability to recognize, understand, and regulate emotions to guide behavior and relationships wisely. It is what separates mere authority from genuine influence. A leader who speaks without emotional awareness may command compliance, but a leader who speaks with emotional intelligence earns commitment. People may forget what you say, but they never forget how you made them feel, and that truth defines the emotional dimension of leadership speech. Every tone, gesture, and pause carries emotional energy, and the emotionally intelligent leader learns to use this energy consciously to inspire, calm, and connect. Leadership is not about suppressing emotion but mastering it, knowing when to express warmth, when to show firmness, when to pause for empathy, and when to use silence as a mirror for reflection. At the foundation of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. Before you can manage the emotions of others, you must understand your own emotional landscape. Every word you speak carries traces of your emotional state, your confidence, your frustration, your sincerity, or your fear. When you are self-aware, you notice how your emotions influence your tone and pacing. You recognize when irritation might make your voice sharp, or when nervousness might make your speech hurried. Self-awareness allows you to pause, breathe, and realign before your words escape uncontrolled. Great leaders do not speak reactively, they speak responsively. They take a mental step back, assess their internal state, and ensure their emotions serve their purpose rather than sabotage it. This mastery gives their communication power and precision. People can sense when you are emotionally grounded. They trust your calm because it reassures them in chaos. Self-awareness also helps leaders stay humble, for it reveals how emotions like pride or insecurity can distort judgment. The more you understand your emotional triggers, the better you can prevent them from dictating your message. The second core of emotional intelligence is self-regulation, the art of controlling impulses, staying composed under pressure, and maintaining consistency in tone and message. Leaders are often tested not in moments of comfort, but in moments of crisis, and it is in these moments that emotional regulation becomes visible. A leader who panics spreads fear. A leader who blames spreads division, but a leader who stays calm communicates stability even before speaking. Emotional control does not mean suppression. It means redirection. It means transforming anger into clarity, anxiety into preparation, and disappointment into determination. When you can maintain composure, you give others permission to do the same. The calm voice of a leader can be more powerful than the loudest motivational speech because it communicates confidence and control. Through consistent emotional regulation, your words begin to carry authority that feels safe and steady rather than unpredictable or impulsive. The third dimension of emotional intelligence is empathy, the ability to step into another person's world and see through their eyes. Empathy turns communication into connection. Without it, leadership becomes mechanical. With it, leadership becomes human. When a leader speaks with empathy, people feel heard, respected, and valued. You can deliver even difficult feedback with empathy by acknowledging feelings before offering direction. For example, instead of saying, "This isn't good enough," an empathetic leader might say, "I can see you put effort into this. Let's refine it together so it reaches the level we both want." The meaning is similar, but the emotional impact is entirely different. Empathy bridges the emotional gap between authority and approachability. It allows leaders to influence without intimidation, to correct without crushing, and to inspire without manipulation. True empathy requires listening, patience, and emotional presence. It is not about pity but understanding. When people feel that you understand them, they open themselves to understanding you. Another vital element of emotional intelligence in communication is social awareness, the ability to read the emotional climate of a group and adapt accordingly. A leader must be attuned not just to individuals, but to the collective energy in a room. Before speaking, great communicators observe body language, tone shifts, and subtle cues that reveal whether the audience is tense, bored, excited, or skeptical. This awareness allows them to adjust their delivery on the spot. They might slow down when they sense confusion, add warmth when they sense resistance, or inject energy when they sense fatigue. Social awareness turns communication into an interactive dance rather than a one-way monologue. It shows emotional agility, the ability to adapt tone without losing authenticity. Leaders who lack social awareness often speak brilliantly, but fail to connect because they ignore emotional signals. Emotional intelligence transforms that failure into sensitivity, making each word resonate with precision. The fifth, and perhaps most transformative component of emotional intelligence is relationship management, the skill of using emotional understanding to build trust. Cooperation and loyalty. Words can unite or divide, motivate or demoralize, heal or harm. Leaders who manage relationships through emotional intelligence use communication to uplift and align others. They know when to encourage publicly and when to correct privately, when to challenge and when to comfort. Their goal is not to win arguments but to strengthen alliances. Relationship management is what turns communication into influence that lasts. It teaches leaders to resolve conflicts without resentment, to give feedback without fear, and to celebrate achievements without ego. In emotionally intelligent communication, every word serves connection, every silence invites respect. Emotional intelligence also shapes how leaders handle criticism. A leader with high EQ does not react defensively to feedback but receives it with curiosity and grace. They recognize that criticism, though uncomfortable, often carries valuable truth. Instead of rejecting it emotionally, they process it intellectually. This calm acceptance encourages open dialogue, showing that honesty is welcome, not punished. Such leaders also give feedback wisely. They balance honesty with empathy, ensuring their words improve rather than injure. They understand that communication is not about proving superiority but nurturing growth. Emotional intelligence turns even difficult conversations into opportunities for understanding and progress. To master emotional intelligence in communication, one must practice emotional mindfulness daily. It begins with small habits, pausing before responding, asking questions before judging, and breathing before reacting. It's about developing awareness not just in dramatic moments but in ordinary ones. Over time, this mindfulness becomes second nature, shaping the rhythm of your speech and the texture of your relationships. You begin to speak with clarity instead of impulse, empathy instead of ego, and conviction instead of tension. People will start to describe your voice as steady, your tone as kind, and your words as wise, not because of your vocabulary but because of your emotional energy. In the end, mastering emotional intelligence in communication is about leading hearts, not just minds. It transforms your voice from a tool of instruction into a bridge of connection. When you speak with emotional awareness, you make people feel safe enough to be open, inspired enough to act, and respected enough to follow. Emotionally intelligent communication is not loud. It is powerful in its calm, persuasive in its empathy, and unforgettable in its sincerity. To talk like a leader, you must not only know what to say, but feel when and how to say it. For leadership is not the art of commanding words. It is the art of commanding emotions through understanding, and in mastering that art, your words will no longer just be heard, they will be felt, remembered, and believed. Chapter 13 Persuasion is the invisible thread that weaves leadership communication into impact, the bridge between intention and action, and the skill that transforms good ideas into collective movement. To talk like a leader, you must master the art of persuasion, not as a manipulative tool to control others, but as a means of guiding them toward a shared vision through understanding, logic, and emotional resonance. True persuasion is not about winning arguments or imposing will, it is about inspiring belief. It is the ability to align people's minds and hearts with a purpose so deeply that they choose to follow you not because they must, but because they want to. Persuasion in leadership speech relies on three essential elements: credibility, emotion, and reason. These three pillars, ethos, pathos, and logos, form the timeless formula that every great communicator has used, from ancient philosophers to modern visionaries. When a leader speaks persuasively, their words do more than inform, they ignite movement. Credibility or ethos is the foundation of all persuasion. People will not be persuaded by someone they do not trust. A leader's words only carry as much power as their integrity allows. Credibility is not built through titles or authority. It is earned through consistency, authenticity, and competence. When your actions reflect your words and your expertise supports your message, people begin to see you as a reliable voice. Every promise kept strengthens this perception, while every contradiction weakens it. To build credibility, a leader must speak from experience, acknowledge what they do not know, and demonstrate humility alongside confidence. Arrogance kills persuasion because it creates distance, while authenticity fuels it because it creates connection. When people believe you are genuine, they listen with open minds. When they believe you care about their well-being, they listen with open hearts. Thus, the first rule of persuasion is not to demand trust, but to deserve it. The second pillar, emotion or pathos, taps into the human heart. While logic guides decisions, emotion drives them. A leader who fails to connect emotionally speaks only to the mind, but a persuasive leader speaks to both mind and spirit. Emotion is what turns information into inspiration. When you tell stories, share personal experiences, or paint vivid pictures of the future, you awaken feeling. And feeling is the language of motivation. People move not because they understand what you said, but because they feel what you mean. Emotion is not about dramatics. It is about sincerity. The tone of your voice, the passion in your delivery, the conviction in your words, All of these communicate emotion more powerfully than facts alone. Persuasive leaders learn to harness emotion ethically, using it to uplift rather than manipulate. They do not exploit fear or guilt. They awaken hope, pride, and purpose. Every word becomes a spark that lights the inner fire of belief in others. The third pillar, reason or logos, gives persuasion its structure. Emotion without logic is chaos, but logic without emotion is cold. To persuade effectively, a leader must balance both. Logical communication appeals to intellect. It presents evidence, examples, and clarity of thought. When you explain your reasoning clearly, people feel safe trusting your judgment. They understand not only what you want them to do, but why it matters. Logical persuasion involves organization, coherence, and simplicity. Overcomplicating your message confuses people, while clarity invites agreement. The persuasive leader presents ideas step by step, addressing doubts before they arise and providing solutions before resistance forms. Facts and data alone rarely inspire action, but when framed within a clear, emotionally engaging narrative, they become powerful tools of conviction. Beyond these classical elements, true persuasion also depends on timing, empathy, and adaptability. Timing determines whether your message is heard or ignored. Knowing when to speak is just as important as knowing what to say. A wise leader reads the emotional climate before delivering a message. They sense whether the audience is ready to receive it. Persuasion fails when it is forced, but succeeds when it flows naturally into the moment. Empathy, meanwhile, ensures that persuasion never becomes manipulation. By understanding others' perspectives, values, and fears, you can tailor your message to resonate deeply. Empathetic persuasion is not about bending others to your will, but aligning your message with their needs and aspirations. Adaptability, finally, is what keeps persuasion alive in changing conditions. Different audiences require different tones. What inspires one group might alienate another. A persuasive leader adjusts delivery without compromising truth, finding the right emotional rhythm for every listener. Another essential aspect of persuasion is storytelling. Stories are the emotional vehicles of ideas. They bypass skepticism and go straight to the heart. A well-told story allows people to see themselves in your message. It transforms abstract concepts into living experiences. Great leaders, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Nelson Mandela, used stories not to entertain but to awaken vision. When you share a story of triumph, struggle, or transformation, you invite others into a shared emotional journey. This connection builds empathy, trust, and belief, the three cornerstones of influence. But storytelling works only when it's authentic. Fabricated tales might impress momentarily but fail to sustain trust. The best stories are drawn from real experiences or collective truths, told with humility and passion. They remind people of their potential, their responsibility, and their role in something larger than themselves. Persuasion also thrives on clarity of purpose. You cannot influence others if you are unclear about what you want to achieve. Every persuasive message should have a single, focused outcome, a call to think differently, act decisively, or believe more deeply. Scattered communication confuses people. Focused communication moves them. The persuasive leader uses repetition, rhythm, and reinforcement to anchor their key message in the audience's memory. They understand that persuasion is not about saying something once. It's about saying it until it resonates. They use metaphors to simplify complex ideas, pauses to emphasize meaning, and questions to engage reflection. Every word is intentional. Every sentence serves the mission. Persuasion also demands patience. Influence is rarely immediate. People resist change naturally, and trust takes time to grow. A skilled persuader plants seeds rather than forcing decisions. They know that people must feel safe before they can be moved. Sometimes persuasion works subtly, through repeated exposure to truth, consistency of message, and steadiness of character. Over time, your credibility and emotional connection create an invisible momentum that draws others to your vision. Persuasion becomes less about convincing and more about aligning. Finally, the power of persuasion lies not in dominating others but in awakening their own convictions. The most persuasive leaders make people believe not in them, but in themselves. They do not demand obedience. They cultivate ownership. When people see their values reflected in your message, they do not feel persuaded, they feel empowered. Persuasion then becomes transformation, and transformation becomes leadership. In its truest form, persuasion is not about control, it is about contribution. It is the art of using your words to elevate others to see what they could not see, believe what they doubted, and act on what they once feared. And when your persuasion is built on truth, guided by empathy, and delivered with conviction, your words will not just change minds, they will change lives. Chapter 15. Silence is one of the most underestimated powers in leadership communication, yet it carries a weight far greater than words ever could. To talk like a leader is not only to speak with authority, but also to know when not to speak at all. Silence, when used with wisdom, becomes a tool of influence, reflection, and control. It shapes the rhythm of conversations, amplifies meaning, and commands respect. Many believe that leadership communication is about eloquence, but the truth is that eloquence often grows in the space between words. Great leaders understand that silence is not emptiness, it is space for thought, emotion, and presence to breathe. In a world filled with noise, the one who can stay calm, composed, and silent when others rush to react gains undeniable power. Silence allows clarity to emerge, truth to reveal itself, and connection to deepen. It is the pause that gives power to speech, the stillness that strengthens action, and the restraint that reveals discipline. Mastering silence is mastering control over your emotions, over the energy of a room, and over the direction of your influence. To use silence effectively, a leader must first develop presence, the quiet strength that makes others listen even before you speak. Presence is not about the loudness of your voice, it is about the depth of your being. When you enter a space, your energy speaks before your words do. People can sense confidence, calmness, and authenticity without a single syllable being spoken. Presence is built through awareness of yourself, of others, and of the atmosphere you create. It grows from inner peace, which cannot be faked. A leader with presence commands attention naturally because they are centered, grounded, and fully in the moment. They do not rush to fill silence with chatter, they allow it to work for them. Silence coupled with strong presence draws others in. It makes them curious, attentive, and receptive. When you pause before speaking, you create anticipation. When you listen deeply, you build trust. And when you choose your words with care, each one carries more meaning. This is the quiet art of leadership communication. The mastery of silence also teaches patience. Leadership requires restraint, the ability to hold back words until they serve purpose rather than impulse. In moments of tension, anger, or confusion, silence can prevent regret. Words spoken in haste can destroy credibility, while silence preserves it. When faced with criticism or provocation, silence communicates strength. It tells others that you are not easily shaken, that you think before you act, and that you lead from wisdom, not emotion. This form of silence is not weakness, it is control. It is the ability to listen without reacting, to assess before deciding, and to let emotions settle before expressing them. Leaders who understand this use silence as their first response to conflict and as their last defense against chaos. They pause not because they are unsure, but because they are deliberate. That pause, filled with composure, often carries more authority than 100 hurried explanations. Another dimension of silence lies in the art of listening. Leadership communication is not a monologue. It is a dialogue built on understanding. To talk like a leader, you must learn to listen like one. Silence allows you to hear not only words but intentions, emotions, and unspoken truths. When you truly listen, people feel valued. They sense that their voices matter. This, in turn, builds loyalty and connection. Listening silently is one of the most persuasive acts a leader can perform because it shows respect. It communicates, "I am here with you, not above you." Leaders who dominate every conversation with their own opinions lose insight. Those who remain silent long enough to understand gain wisdom. Through silence, they observe patterns, identify fears, and recognize potential. They learn what drives people, what holds them back, and what they truly need. Listening transforms silence into empathy, and empathy transforms communication into influence. In leadership speech, silence also shapes timing. The most powerful words are often framed by moments of quiet. Pausing before delivering an important point builds anticipation, while pausing after allows reflection. Silence gives your audience time to absorb meaning. It turns your words into experience. Great speakers use silence like music. They know when to create rhythm, when to hold a note, and when to let the sound fade. This deliberate use of silence draws the listener deeper into your message. It emphasizes confidence because only a confident person can stay silent comfortably. In contrast, nervous speakers rush their words, fearing that silence means weakness. But leaders understand that silence commands the room. It gives others space to process emotion, and it signals authority without aggression. Every pause becomes a punctuation mark that enhances your speech's power. Silence also deepens self-awareness. When you spend time in silence, you confront your inner world. You hear your own thoughts clearly, separate from the noise of opinions and distractions. This introspection is vital for authentic leadership. Through silence, you discover your values, your motives, and your emotional triggers. You begin to understand what kind of energy you bring into your words. A leader who practices silent reflection speaks from clarity rather than confusion. Their communication becomes intentional because it is born from inner stillness. They know what to say and what to leave unsaid. They can sense the right moment to intervene and the right moment to simply observe. Silence sharpens intuition, and intuition strengthens leadership. The more time you spend in quiet reflection, the more power your voice carries when you finally speak. However, silence should not be mistaken for absence or avoidance. There are moments when silence can create misunderstanding if it lacks presence or purpose. A leader must learn to distinguish between silence that builds trust and silence that breeds distance. When someone seeks guidance, remaining silent without empathy can seem cold. Therefore, silence must always be accompanied by awareness, an understanding of when it empowers and when it isolates. The key is to use silence intentionally. Let it communicate strength, thoughtfulness, and care. Let it show that you are listening, processing, and valuing the other person's voice. When silence is aligned with empathy, it becomes the highest form of communication. Ultimately, mastering the art of silence and presence completes the cycle of leadership communication. You begin with words that inspire, you guide with persuasion, you connect through listening, and you lead through silence. Every great leader understands that communication is not about talking endlessly, but about creating meaning in every exchange. When you know how to use silence, you no longer chase influence, you attract it. You no longer try to dominate conversations, you direct them subtly. Silence gives you control without force, respect without demand, and power without arrogance. It allows you to remain calm in chaos, composed under pressure, and clear in uncertainty. The leader who has mastered silence does not need to shout to be heard. Their presence alone speaks volumes in a noisy world. Silence becomes your signature strength, your reminder that true leadership is not